everyone to our last and final presentation for Division D for the 2017 Champs Trophy Case Competition. Here we have Team Tiki who are just getting ready, and we're very, very lucky to have our judging panel, Jodie King, who is the CPO of Air New Zealand, Stephanie Perrin, Global Fund Analyst from Milford Asset Management, and also Hamish Nuttall, who is the Virtual Chief Digital Officer for Digile.io. So the team will have 10 minutes to make the presentation. With 2 minutes to go, I will hold up this sign, and 1 minute to go, I will hold up this sign. I'll be seated over here, and this will be the same for Q&A. 2 minutes, 1 minute, then I will cut you off at the end of 10 minutes. The team may just begin immediately.
Now, the king eagle is known to be the king of the sky. The reason for that is because it has been always able to outcompete its peers and go for the prey. Now, Air New Zealand today is faced with a similar set of problems. The question is, how can it outcompete its competitors to survive in this highly saturated airline industry? Kia ora, we are from Tiki Consulting. And today, we present to you a set of strategies that allow Air New Zealand to not only soar above the clutter, but to glide into the future. Now firstly, we first identified two key issues that you have to overcome today. Firstly, how do you leverage on tourism-driven demand, and how do you differentiate your consumer journey? Now, when we looked at the current environment today, we noticed that there are numerous issues that you have to overcome. And what we identified was that there are two key issues, two key areas which you should be looking at. And we judged this based on two factors. Firstly, the importance of these issues, and also the ease and ability of Air New Zealand to overcome these issues. And where we identify your future strength will be is firstly riding on tourism-driven demand in New Zealand, and also competing in the Pacific Rim region. So, more specifically, why are these two things so important? Now we define three key factors for this. Firstly, the geography in which New Zealand is located in. What we see today is that a large bulk of this Pacific-driven demand is the reason why New Zealand is able to partake in this is due to its geographic location. However, what we also see is that there's a huge competitor right beside you in Australia. So the question is, how do you differentiate yourself from this key competitor within the Pacific region? Secondly, we also notice that there is a huge growth in demand in both tourism and Pacific Rim flights. And lastly, there's increasing competition within these areas. As an implication is to focus on leveraging tourism demand by establishing Air New Zealand as a choice airline in Pacific Rim region. Now, as for answering the question of where we should compete, the next question that we have to look at is how should we compete? In doing so, we looked at three key competitive factors within the airline industry. Firstly, the price. Secondly, the consumer journey. And lastly, the amount of routes frequency and routes quantity. Now what we see here is that the consumer journey is the easiest and the most important thing to target. Simply because when we look at pricing, the key thing about pricing is that you could potentially lead to a price wars if you were to go down this path. And we look at routes frequency and quantity, one of the key things that we considered was the amount of capital investments required to acquire these routes. However, when looking at the consumer journey, what we noticed was that there are only two areas along this entire consumer journey, starting from awareness to post-flight experience. And what we see and what we define as important is because what we notice along this entire consumer journey is there are numerous points of parity in the airline industry today. All of these parity are easily imitable, and what we need to do is to find out the places of interest which are hard to imitate and requires high involvement. And we will locate this is within the awareness chain and the in-flight experience for flights today. With these two implications in mind, I bring to you our game plan for today: to soar and to glide.
Soaring high. As Zach has mentioned, we want to use tourist-driven demand in the next phase for our growth strategy. But looking at today's environment, the first thing that we notice is that Air New Zealand only has 37% market share of all international flights coming in and out of New Zealand. And a bulk of this tourism-driven demand is coming in from both Australia and China. And simply, we are not the top brand of choice when it comes to the airlines, when it comes to flying to New Zealand, both in and out. And what we want to do really here today is to become the top of mind airline choice when it comes to this market. But if you look at the entire spectrum of travelers today, for tourists, we notice various different groups. You have FIT, free independent travelers. You have families, couples, and early retirees who often are tourists coming to New Zealand. And what they really care about is finding the next adventure tomorrow in my destination as a tourist. And given that this is what they care about, the next thing that we need to do from Air New Zealand is to have the right brand positioning to cater to what they care about. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you our brand statement for 2017. Your tomorrow begins with us today. And what we want to do is really, in our branding, highlight three main pillars. The first pillar being that Air New Zealand provides the gateway to exciting experiences within New Zealand itself. Second, we also serve the Maori way, encompassing the values of love and care. And lastly, we also are there to help you plan your next trip right there with you in every step along the way. And on top of that, besides having this brand positioning, we decided to focus on a priority market, communicating this revised positioning. And the first key market to focus on for long-haul flights will be the Chinese market. And for the Chinese markets, we have after identifying this target group, what we have observed is that what they care about is about unique experiences that they can take back home and share with their peers. And we also have done the necessary homework in terms of where their social media sites they frequent and what they really care about. But how do we reach out to them? Here, we now look at our game plan, which is by using celebrity endorsements, which are highly regarded among the Chinese public. So by, let's say, sponsoring the flight tickets of a famous Chinese celebrity and documenting that travelogue and broadcasting it on social media, we are confident that we can raise not only the awareness that we need to become an international carrier, but also become the top of choice airline when it comes to flying in and out of New Zealand in the years to come.
With our first strategy, we've soared high like an eagle. With our second strategy, just as how the eagle glides majestically through the sky, our superior customer service and customer experience will help Air New Zealand glide through years of success in the coming years. And so our second strategy here aims to enhance our customer experience. But the two key problems that we face with this is intensifying competition, as well as the fact that any initiatives is easily replicable by competitors. And so what this means for Air New Zealand is that we need to be the first mover in generating the buzz and creating the personalized customer experience for our passengers. And looking at the whole in-flight experience, we've identified three key pillars that our passengers value. And that is firstly service, customization, as well as comfort. That consists of both physical and emotional comfort. We've recognized that Air New Zealand is highly recognized for exceptional in-flight service, and therefore here we see an opportunity for us to create a buzz and enhance our customer experience by providing them with a customization in-flight experience as well as emotional comfort during the flight. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you the Kiwi e-magazine. The Kiwi e-magazine is a personalized e-magazine for each of our passengers. So let's take Mike, for example. Mike booked us an Air New Zealand ticket on NICE via our website and connects with us through Facebook Connect. Boarding the plane, Mike sits on his seat, and once he sits there, he's welcomed by a screen saying, "Kia ora, Mike." In this screen, we'll be able to feature travel tips, information on the Maori culture, as well as a personalized content on articles, music, videos based on Mike's personal interests. Another key feature that our Kiwi e-magazine will feature is to be able to receive message from home. So a few days prior to Mike's departure, his wife will be prompted by an email from Air New Zealand to be given the option to send him a bon voyage message for Mike's travel. And here, Mike will be able to receive this message alongside his wife's picture on the screen itself. And another way that we've identified how we can enhance our overall customer experience in Air New Zealand is by sharing Kiwi moments. So through Kiwi moments, each of our passengers will be entitled a picture that they can print instantly on flight, and this picture will be taken via their phone on their flight. So here we want to tell our passengers that their journey begins even before they land on their destinations. So ladies and gentlemen, with our second strategy glide, what we aim to achieve here is to enhance Air New Zealand's in-flight experience, at the same time create a social buzz through the media that we're able to create, and lastly, to differentiate our in-flight experience from our competitors.
To ensure the operational feasibility of our project, we have come up with a 5-year strategy implementation timeline, which I will be happy to go through with you during Q&A. Today, Air New Zealand is given with the problem to survive in this competitive environment. And the best way to measure the success of our strategy is by looking at the number of customers that can possibly be reached through our strategies, as well as the amount of revenue that will be generated. We hope that the number of customers that can be generated from our strategies will increase, mainly from the Trans-Tasman region as well as the long-haul flights, which will in turn generate the revenue. And revenue in this case is given by the available seats kilometers multiplied with the load factor as well as the yield.
Today, the future for Air New Zealand is filled with uncertainty, but for those who know where to look, it also brings about opportunity. And if our strategies are soar and high, just like the eagle, we are confident that Air New Zealand will become the king of the skies in the years to come. Thank you, and now open the floor for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. So you're really focusing around enhancing the customer experience as a strategy to maintain and grow the company. Our customer experience scores are through the roof. They're sort of 90%, I'm not sure what it says in the case study, but and we've been voted best airline by a number of publications and industries. So what additional premium will customers pay for even higher levels, and isn't there just a sort of a rate of decreasing return if you invest even more when we've got such high figures?
To really understand your point. So I think there are two key components to this. Firstly, what we recognize is that the first part of our strategy is really about leveraging increasing tourism and how this inbound and outbound flight with New Zealand. And so a lot of these customers are not New Zealand Air customers yet. So what we want to try to do is to convert these customers to come aboard. So which is why our strategy, which focuses on the consumer journey and customer experience, has a very high social factor. And what we really want to do here is to create a buzz, and that will attract people to come to Air New Zealand on board what is already an excellent customer service.
And to complement what Zach has also mentioned, I mean, you asked about what kind of premium are they really willing to pay for the additional customer service that we can provide. So I think one of the case studies that actually drove our recommendation was TAM Airlines. So on the inaugural flight from Milan to Sao Paulo, what they did was actually the same customized magazine that we actually had proposed, but they manually printed it for every customer. And for the next few months, all their flight tickets were actually sold out. And that's something we realized customers really want. It's a very competitive game within the in-flight experience itself. And by just taking a small step, we can go a long way in getting the customers that we need.
Can I just go to this slide, prioritisation of issues? You talk about importance and ease. How did you come to those scorings? This matrix.
Yeah, so let me just walk you through briefly. So there are two key sets of consideration that we have here. Firstly, are macro factors that are affecting the entire airline industry. So these are factors like, for example, your fuel prices. And the second factor is basically product-based areas that we're looking at. So which can be categorized into according to the region you're traveling. So Pacific Rim, Trans-Tasmania, and domestic demand. And then there are other demands, which are your airports and other products. So in terms of importance, what we see here is firstly measured across two factors: the size of the demand today and what is the growth of demand. And the reason why Pacific Rim is up on top is because we see that there is a huge potential in this market for connecting flights from Asia to Americas, and when we are located in the center of the Pacific Rim, it gives us that geographical advantage. The reason why Tasmania is above domestic demand is because we noticed that our biggest competitor, Qantas Airline, recently actually increased the capacity significantly, and this gives us a huge concern as to why we should tackle this. And lastly, domestic demand, the reason is below because we have a pretty strong position there. Yeah, so these are key reasons that we were looking at when we categorize the flight, geography of flights that we were looking at.
Just on the sort of proportion of customers that may really sort of value that premium customer experience, I mean, what about all the customers that do sort of focus on price and just getting to that destination where then they're going to have the time of their life on holiday? And how do you sort of think about the customer that you're targeting in that proportion?
So I think, yes, we do acknowledge price is an important factor when it comes to customers. When let's say you're traveling as a tourist, you often look at price as one of your first few considerations. But we felt beyond just going price, one of the first things that we need to do is we need to first have a very strong brand association and be at least be in the top few considerations when you're making a choice of getting a flight on to, let's say, New Zealand. And we felt by having a stronger repositioning of our branding, highlighting the fact that we are the gateway for you to get into New Zealand, we can have that superior, stellar customer service experience on board. I think by communicating that brand positioning, that's going to create a much stronger image as well as association with these potential customers who are more likely to stay with us for a longer period of time as compared to our pricing, because that doesn't guarantee that they would just come back again if we raise the prices.
So I'm looking at all the load factors across all of our different routes here, and your strategy says that you're trying to increase those load factors, trying to get more people in the empty seats. So which markets would you be focusing on in terms of your enhanced customer experience, customer journey proposition?
Oh, sorry, let me actually have a slide right here that we refer to this. But let me. So, according to the question that you asked. So, what we intend to do with this customer journey. So, the key area that we are trying to do here is to create buzz. So, and one of the key points that our first strategy was centered or was in the Chinese market, because we see it's increasing demand from tourism from the Chinese market. So that's our first key pilot area. We want to test out whether this buzz creation can actually drive into sufficient returns on investment for this. So this is our first layer. And then after which we follow through this strategy through our other key tourism market, which is in Australia, and also potentially looking into our Americas market, where we're seeing new competitors from American Airlines entering the market, entering the Pacific route.
In the positioning of your brand, you talk about providing a gateway to exciting experiences and so on. There's a risk that in doing that you're going to promote New Zealand, but other airlines will benefit from it. So how do you propose to mitigate that?
I think true, yes, there's a certain amount of risk in promoting tourism to New Zealand as a whole. But I think that also reduces the likelihood of a retaliation strategy from them, because on first glance, this is not as retaliated. This is not as, what do you call it, aggressive a strategy in the eyes of a competitor. But for us, it is creating a top-of-mind brand recall that we really need, because when they think of Air New Zealand and think of us as the airline bringing them to New Zealand, we felt there will be a stronger pull factor in getting them and giving us the first mover advantage we need to bring them on board in the short run.
And just to add on to that, and this is how our first strategy and our second strategy actually complement each other. So our strategy with the buzz that we create, with the experience on board and the videos that we're able to go viral on our target market, China, this will create the propensity for our target passengers to choose our airlines over the competitors.
Do you think these strategies can be sort of copied by the competitors at Qantas or other airlines?
So, like we noted in our one of the first few analysis, like we believe that in the air industry, almost every single factor is easily imitable. And what we really want to do here is to leverage on what is our core asset. As Air New Zealand, our core asset is being part of New Zealand. That's why our first strategy is highly centric on the fact that we are a New Zealand airline. And our striker strategy is really about being a first mover in generating buzz. And we think that this top of mind awareness or the buzz that's created is usually harder to replicate compared to, because when competitors come in, they're just going to be a second mover, and you're going to be following what we are doing in generating buzz. And what people will remember first is that New Zealand Air was the first one who came up with that.
So your strategy is around maximising what's currently existing in place. Did you consider, and why did you dismiss new market entry?
So I think one of the first reasons we actually considered, should we move beyond where we are operating right now? So I think there are two key barriers that we see. Firstly is the freedom of flight, whether we are able to actually to go up to 7 degree of freedom or 8 degree of freedom in moving across those areas. And secondly is because when we are looking at, say, one of the biggest potential for new markets is probably in the Americas, where we can explore secondary airports for us to become a key connecting area to transit to. But what we see there is a highly competitive market, and even in our current market where we are seeing new competitive entry, but investing in that additional capital to invest to go there, the returns might not be justifiable for the amount of effort that we're putting in. So at least in the short run, what we aim to do is to secure these quick wins before we go into the longer term strategy to see, exactly is there a possibility of exploring other secondary airports.
How likely is it that this viral strategy will work, given that Air New Zealand is a very small airline, particularly in the Chinese market and so on?
So I think that's where we decided to look at retailoring the experience to the Chinese consumer. So I think three things we observed. First was, what experience in New Zealand perhaps could we really sell? For instance, the Chinese love wine tasting. Second, what social media do they often frequent? Weibo, as compared to, let's say,